Most men over 60 assume the produce aisle has nothing to do with what happens at 3 in the morning. In one small clinical study, men who added a specific seed extract to their day saw their nighttime symptoms drop by about 30% in 12 weeks. No prescription, no procedure. I'm 83, and most nights now I sleep straight through without my feet ever touching that cold floor. And when I do get up, I'm back in bed inside 2 minutes, not 20. So let me show you the 5 fruits behind that and why almost nobody over 60 has ever connected them to the bathroom. I sleep through most nights now, and when I do stand at the toilet, I'm done and back under the covers before I'm even fully awake. For 11 years, the bathroom ran my nights. 2 o'clock, then 4, then sometimes a third trip right before the alarm went off anyway. I'd stand there in the dark, half asleep, waiting on a stream that came out slower than it used to, weaker than it used to, and I'd tell myself the same thing every single time. It's just age, Walter. This is what 80 looks like. Nobody argued with me. My doctor checked my blood pressure, glanced at my chart, had maybe 8 minutes total, and moved on to the next patient. There was no time in that appointment for anyone to sit me down and explain what was actually happening inside me, or why the fruit bowl on my own kitchen counter had anything to do with it. The daytime cost was quieter, but just as real. I stopped taking the long drive to see my daughter because I didn't trust a 2-hour stretch without a bathroom. I mapped every gas station and rest stop between here and there like it was a military operation. I turned down a fishing trip with an old friend because I couldn't picture myself comfortable 4 hours from a toilet. That's the part nobody tells you about an enlarged prostate. It doesn't just take your sleep, it starts taking your calendar. There's a particular kind of tired that comes from broken sleep, and it's different from just being sleepy. It's the kind where your patience goes first. I snapped at my grandson over something small one afternoon, and the second it left my mouth, I knew it wasn't really about him. It was about being awake since 2 in the morning for the 3rd night running. My wife started sleeping with an extra pillow between us so my getting up wouldn't wake her, which felt, at the time, like a small kindness. Looking back, it felt like the two of us quietly making room for a problem neither of us was naming out loud. Here's what none of us were ever told in that 8-minute appointment. As a man ages, the prostate gland tends to grow, and because it sits wrapped directly around the tube urine has to pass through, that growth squeezes the channel narrower, which is exactly why the stream slows down and takes more effort to start. At the same time, a bladder working against that narrowed channel often can't fully empty itself in one go, so it fills back up again within the hour instead of the 3 or 4 hours it used to take. That's the real reason the bathroom trips stack up specifically at night. Fluid that pooled in your legs during the day gets pulled back into your bloodstream the moment you lie flat, adding to a bladder that was already struggling to empty completely. It was never really about being weak, and it was never really about just getting older. It was a narrowed channel and a bladder that never quite finished the job. And there's a second layer to the nighttime piece specifically that took me even longer to understand. During the day, gravity pulls fluid down into your lower legs and it just sits there, especially if you're sitting most of the day like I was. The moment you lie down flat to sleep, that fluid has nowhere else to go. It gets pulled back into your bloodstream and eventually has to be processed and filtered out as urine, hours after you've gone to bed. So it isn't only the narrowed channel and the tired bladder, it's also a second wave of fluid arriving specifically at night, on top of the system that was already behind on emptying properly during the day. For 11 years, the bathroom ran my nights. Up at midnight, up at 2, up again at 5, a weak little stream each time and never quite empty. I'd lie there, staring at the ceiling, knowing I'd drag through the next day half awake. I thought it was just age. It wasn't. Here's what no one ever sat me down to explain. The prostate crowds the channel your urine runs through, so the bladder never fully drains, it just fills right back up within the hour. That's why you go, and go again. It was never weakness. It was never getting old. And the pills they kept handing me? They left me dizzy every time I stood, gave me that strange, dry finish where almost nothing came, and the nights never changed. But there is a gentle way to help that bladder empty the way it's meant to, without any of that. At 83, I finally sleep through the night again. I'll show you exactly what in this video, and if you want the simple support I personally use, there's a free presentation linked in the description below. Once I understood that, I went looking for anything that actually supported that mechanism, not just masked the symptom. And what I found was that 5 ordinary fruits, things most men over 60 walk past in the grocery store without a second thought, have real research behind them for exactly this. The first is pumpkin. I know it doesn't look like the produce aisle kind of fruit, but botanically, pumpkin is a fruit, and pumpkin seed extract has some of the most specific research in this entire area. In one pilot study of 60 men with an average age in their early 60s, a daily pumpkin seed extract was linked to roughly a 30% reduction in overall urinary symptom scores over 3 months. I do want to be straight with you about the rest of the evidence, because I've watched too many videos oversell this exact ingredient. A much larger trial, over 1,400 men followed for a full year, did not find a significant difference from placebo on the main symptom score they were measuring. But in that same larger study, one specific measurement did move in the pumpkin group and not the placebo group: the amount of urine left behind after going, what doctors call residual volume, actually dropped. So the honest picture is mixed on overall symptoms, but genuinely promising on emptying more completely, which is exactly the piece so many of us are missing at 2 in the morning. Second is cranberry, and not the sugary juice cocktail, the whole fruit or an unsweetened concentrated form. In a randomized trial out of the Czech Republic, men with lower urinary tract symptoms who took a cranberry supplement reported meaningfully fewer symptoms and better quality of life than the group taking a placebo. Researchers believe cranberry compounds help calm irritation along the bladder lining itself, which is a different piece of the puzzle than the prostate squeezing the channel. It's about the bladder wall being less reactive, less quick to signal "go now" before it's actually full. Third, pomegranate. This one is still an emerging area of research, but pomegranate is rich in polyphenol compounds that researchers have studied for general anti-inflammatory support around the pelvic region, and men in some small studies have reported improved comfort and flow alongside it. I treat this one as a reasonable ad, not a headline claim. The seeds themselves, or an unsweetened juice, a few times a week. It's not going to carry the video on its own, but it costs almost nothing to add, and it stacks on top of what the stronger evidence is already doing. Fourth is watermelon, and this one earns its place for a very specific reason. It's roughly 92% water, and unlike a lot of fruit, it doesn't come loaded with the same fluid-retaining sodium that keeps you up at night. Eaten earlier in the day rather than in the evening, it hydrates you without contributing to that late-night fluid pooling in your legs I mentioned earlier. Timing matters here more than the fruit itself. I have a slice with lunch most days in the warmer months, never after dinner, because the whole point is to be hydrated by bedtime, not still processing a big glass of fluid at 9 at night. Fifth, kiwi. Small, unassuming, and genuinely underrated. Kiwi is one of the more nutrient-dense fruits you can eat for its size, particularly for compounds researchers have linked to smoother muscle function throughout the body, including the muscle tissue involved in bladder control. I eat one most mornings, skin brushed off, nothing fancy about it. My granddaughter thinks it's funny that an 83-year-old man has a favorite fruit, but there it is. Put together, that's 5 angles working on 2 different problems at once: a channel under pressure and a bladder that's tired of fighting it. Pumpkin seed and cranberry are doing the heaviest lifting on the research side. Pomegranate, watermelon timing, and kiwi round out the system without asking you to overhaul your whole diet. None of these 5 fruits are a substitute for whatever your doctor already has you on. And if you're managing an enlarged prostate, please stay in that relationship. These are meant to sit alongside your treatment, not replace any part of it. What they do, together, is support the same 2 things that were failing me for 11 years. A channel that isn't fighting itself, and a bladder that actually finishes the job. Last month I drove 3.5 hours straight to my daughter's place, 1 stop for gas, and I didn't think about a bathroom once. There's a man named Dale, 71, a retired mail carrier outside Tulsa, who wrote to a group I follow describing almost exactly my own 11 years. Up 3, sometimes 4 times a night, a stream he said had no push left in it. He'd already tried cutting out coffee entirely, and it hadn't moved the needle much, which is what made him skeptical when someone first mentioned fruit to him. He started with pumpkin seed extract and unsweetened cranberry anyway. Nothing else changed at first. He said the difference in how completely he emptied showed up within a few weeks, though he was honest that the number of nighttime trips took closer to 2 months to really settle down, and he was still working with his urologist the entire time on his regular treatment. What stuck with me most was something small he mentioned, almost as an afterthought. He'd started leaving his shoes by the door again, because he'd stopped being afraid to make a quick trip outside in the morning. I'm not telling you his timeline will be yours. Every man's body responds differently. I'm telling you because his 11 years sounded exactly like mine. So here's what I use: a few drops every single morning. And let me be honest about why it works. One herb on its own nudges one thing, but your prostate answers best when several signals are calmed at the same time: the flow, the emptying, the pressure behind it. That's why what I take brings them together, concentrated, working as one, not a single ingredient hoping to do everything. Stronger stream, full emptying, quiet nights, your freedom back. And none of the trade-offs, no dizziness, no dry finish, nothing taken from you as a man. It's linked right under this video. Go see it for yourself. It won't replace good sleep or your own doctor. It's there to support your body. At 83, I sleep through. It is not too late for you. Here's what I want you to walk away with tonight. The prostate isn't something that just fails you as you get older, and the bathroom isn't something you have to keep quietly rebuilding your whole life around. There's a narrowed channel and a bladder that isn't finishing its job, and there are real, studied ways to support both of those things, starting with what's already sitting in the produce aisle, alongside whatever your doctor has you doing, never instead of it. I think about the man who mapped every gas station on a 2-hour drive because he didn't trust his own bladder. I think about turning down that fishing trip and the small, quiet lie I told my friend about just being busy instead of admitting the real reason. And I think about the man I am now, 83, who got in the car last month and just drove 3.5 hours, one stop for gas that had nothing to do with a bathroom. I didn't reverse my age. I just stopped ignoring what my body actually needed to do its job. If any part of this sounds like your own nights, tell me in the comments. Tell me how many times you're getting up, and how long you've been telling yourself it's just age. I read every comment myself. And if you want the next honest breakdown like this one, subscribe, because 8 minutes with your doctor was never going to be enough to cover